Hey everyone, the name's Ossy Flawol. In recent times, Valve appears to have abandoned their old philosophy about not looking back on their older titles, as we ended up getting special events dedicated to the 25th and 20th anniversaries of Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. This has stirred up a lot of conversation around the Source Engine community about what could come about if Valve continued this trend, or even if they would continue to do this for games beyond the Half-Life series. Personally, I'm optimistic that they would, and that they absolutely should. It'd be nothing but good for Valve to continue to celebrate their past and look back on how far things have come. It really incentivizes people to come back and look at these games as well. However, Half-Life is not the thing I've chosen to hyperfixate my life around. That title goes to Portal. Originally, this was a video covering what anniversary updates could look like for Half-Life 2 in the entire orange box, but it ended up being really busy and the actual Half-Life 2 anniversary flew right by me. So for this video, I want to discuss what a hypothetical Portal anniversary could look like. We missed the chance for the 15th anniversary back in 2022, so let's aim for the 20th anniversary of the game in 2027. You would think that surely there couldn't be anything too major done for Portal, but trust me when I say that you would absolutely be surprised. Let's discuss one thing first and foremost. First, I think Valve should delist Portal RTX. Did I say something? Anyways, before I move on for realsies, I do need to mention that it appears Valve has been trying to bring Portal up to date with the latest version of the Source Engine that was introduced in the Half-Life 2 anniversary. However, this has not been without its own suite of issues it's brought along. It seems that whoever the company has been trying to make this happen has kind of been failing to make sure things work fine. It feels like every update to fix one issue brings like 20 smaller ones. For the sake of this video, I'll only be acknowledging things that were present as problems before these updates. So first, I think parity needs to be established between the gamepad UI and the normal VGUI of the game. Ever since the Steam Deck updates, a convar was added to Portal that actually lets you disable the Portal 2 ARG radios that spawn when you beat the game. However, most people don't know this command exists, because the only place it is actually visible to the average player is the gamepad UI, which for most people is seemingly Steam Deck exclusive. It isn't, by the way. You can just do dash gamepad UI in the launch options. Players who don't use the updated UI can still freely change this convar with the developer console, of course, but be honest, is a normal person really gonna know how to work the dev console, or even that this command exists? It wouldn't be too hard to just add a second checkbox to the game options menu, right? I'd personally say outright the gamepad UI should be made the default for Portal 1. It fits with the game's visuals more than the standard Half-Life 2 one. Also, you know what I said about the Half-Life 2 anniversary changes? Yeah, look at how it's destroyed the spacing in the menu. Speaking of obvious errors, the hand on the back of the portal gun. If you spin around really fast, you may notice the hand on the back of the portal gun. And not only that, it's a missing texture. At some point, the texture for the hand was removed, likely by mistake. It would be super easy to fix. However, the hand being here is a leftover from a period of development where the player had both hands on the portal gun view model. It may be better to just outright remove this hand. Like, look at this thing. It clearly wasn't meant to be shipped with the final game because it has zero animation or grip. It's just there. If you care about the hand enough, you're probably enough of a freak about Portal that you would install a mod to bring it back if it was removed. While we're on this topic, hey, did you know that Chell goes into A pose whenever she's airborne? That should be fixed too, considering it's something players can see pretty easily. And another thing you probably wouldn't expect, when you die, there's a red tint over the screen. This shouldn't be happening, and came about from a HUD resource file being accidentally replaced with its Half-Life 2 version some years ago. There's even a comment in the original Portal 1 version of the file containing a developer message saying the lack of red is intended behavior. And there's one final issue I've been avoiding acknowledging here, and it's something that's existed since the Orange Box release. The ending card textures. In the modern day, where most people play on wider FOVs and widescreen monitors are standard, nothing is more jarring than Portal's ending featuring this very noticeable cutoff on the outdoor textures. It was made even more noticeable when the ending was changed in 2010 to add the party escort bot dragging Chell back in. This could be fixed easily by adjusting these brushes over, considering how much of these textures aren't visible in-game. But you know what Valve could also do? We know the location of the Portal ending textures now. We have the exact coordinates. Someone at Valve could just go out there and photograph a new one that accounts for the cutoff. Just need to make the time for it. Did you know that the Portal developers wanted the source code to the game to be released? Jeep Barnett, one of the programmers, expressed in a 2008 email talking about the unused light cast-through Portals functionality, and that they were hoping to see modders play around with it once the Portal SDK arrived. The Portal SDK that ended up releasing was very bare bones. It was literally just a mapping tools and that's your law. No source code for the game. And that's a huge shame, because if you looked at the leaked codebase for Portal, it's one of the most documented in Valve history. There are code comments all over the place, explaining how everything works. It's clear a release of this was genuinely what the team was hoping to see. Now, originally when this video was started production, I assumed the Portal SDK would be impossible, something that we would never see. But then Valve proceeded to update the source SDK to add the code for Team Fortress 2, a multiplayer game they still financially profit from. If they can do this for Team Fortress 2, surely they can do it for Portal 1, because this many years later, there is no reason to keep the secrets of how the portals work hidden, when there's been presentations done by Valve employees about it, multiple source code leaks, and many different examples of portals being done by other developers. Plus, it would be nice to see the wish of the Portal 1 developers be respected. And that's the big stuff out of the way, so let's scope a bit more reasonably now. Portal has an incredibly robust system for custom content built into it with its bonus map system. The bonus map system is in some ways actually better than Portal 2's workshop system. Portal 2's system only supports having one single BSP map file for the upload, and that's your lot, no additional knickknacks or anything. The Portal 1 bonus map system in comparison, however, allows for full-on proper campaigns with working level transitions, and even allows you to create challenge versions of your levels, fully supported. It's all just one folder with all the stuff contained inside it. So, I propose the bonus map system for Portal 1 receive workshop support. To those not in the know, this may seem weird because Portal 2 was the game to introduce the Steam Workshop. Surely the sequel will be able to facilitate all Portal 1 content just fine, right? Well, it's really not that simple. A lot of the custom map culture for Portal 1 thrives more than you think on the leftover Half-Life 2 content. There are things you just can't do in Portal 2, plus about 4 years of baseline engine changes between the games that can mean things work fine in Portal 1 that aren't going to do so in the sequel. Like, the rocket turret doesn't even work in Portal 2, and it requires really hacky workarounds to be made barely functional. Plus, you know what? The Half-Life 2 Anniversary has opened the floodgates. Portal should also get all the reskin functionality the Half-Life 2 Workshop has, considering how many asset replacement mods exist for the game. Now you too, average normal person, could download this person's My Little Pony OC from the comfort of the Steam Workshop. Not to throw shame on them, of course, especially considering that So one big thing about the Anniversary updates has been to bring the game's visuals back to how they looked more on launch, or at least to improve them in some way. Truthfully, I think Portal has stood the test of time in this regard. Any potential improvements to the maps that I would like to see would be very minimal. However, there is one glaring difference we've already mentioned. In 2010, as part of the Portal 2 ARG, the ending to Portal was changed. Originally, you would just be lying in the parking lot and it would fade out, leaving Chell's fate unknown. However, the ARG update added the scene of the party escort bot dragging Chell back inside. I think personally, this original ending should be reinstated, perhaps having it tied to the ARG radios. It would mean that someone's first playthrough of the game would be the original 2007 experience, and then once you unlock the post-game radios, you would get the updated ARG ending, and it could be easily turned off at the flick of a setting. One more small suggestion before we get to the big stuff. I know some people really like the DirectX 8 version of the portals, where they're incredibly smooth. I think it would be cute if this was made an option people could easily use in the standard DX9 mode for Portal. Just for the hell of it. Though moving along now, I've got a much bigger hope for what Valve should do. And if anything, I think this is the one thing Valve needs to do, even if nothing else in this video happens. You know what I'm about to suggest if you are a big Portal fan. Since 2008, Portal has had an exclusive version of the game for the Xbox Live Arcade called Portal Still Alive. On the surface, it's the same game. However, it comes with its own unique set of achievements that aren't on any other release of the game, and it has what people most know it for: an entire set of 14 new bonus levels, all based on the Flash version map pack. This content to this day is still not easily accessible by the average player, and the fan ports are of sometimes questionable quality. The official Switch port of Portal 1 did bundle in the Still Alive levels, but it didn't add the skull reskin for the cube respawn buttons. Not including the actual cube, by the way, that thing's unused. And they didn't add any of the new achievements. It's just Portal 1 with the Still Alive maps thrown in. It's not a port of Still Alive. Meaning, to this day, we still lack that version parity in any official capacity. Wouldn't it be great if we, did? Just bring all the Still Alive achievements and bonus levels over, and you're not gonna find any complaints from me. That's a lie. You know what would be nice? Since Valve went through the effort of updating every Half-Life 2 map, they should absolutely do the same for the Still Alive levels, which is a considerably smaller amount. I mean, come on, if you place these levels next to Portal's original set, they're kind of a train wreck. They utilize the unused gradient textures, there's some horrendously mashed together sections of the original Portal 1 levels, none of the indicator lines are sized correctly and look massive, it's just total pandemonium. All these levels deserve a second pass to be more in line with the original set of Portal 1 levels. I would go as far as to say the gameplay deserves tweaks to respect the element connections rules of Portal 1. If you watch my video from when I remade and unbackloaded drop for Portal 1, you know what I mean by this, so go watch that if you're curious for what that entails. Still Alive's levels don't follow that philosophy at all, and it genuinely makes a world of difference in feeling like a true Portal level when those rules are adhered to. Valve, I know one of you there is probably watching this. Let me do this for you. I redesigned some of the Still Alive levels and I've been doing this Portal monitoring for years. Oh, and here's a fun idea. People like to string together the Still Alive chambers into a full campaign. If the update does go through the effort of updating all the levels, why not make that possible? Have a Still Alive campaign unlocked as a bonus for completing the game. Maybe throw in a quick new introductory level, have an escape sequence portion like the one that was cut, maybe even bring in Element Claims for some new GLaDOS lines. That would be cute considering she jumps at any chance to be in the role again. And on the topic of cut content, let's go for a silly round. Valve isn't afraid to acknowledge developmental content nowadays, and that was especially evident with them adding Ivan and Proto Barnet to Half-Life 1. And the fact they went out of their way to dig up the legendary SIGGRAPH 2000 Half-Life 2 demo. So, could we do anything for Portal in this regard? A few little things actually, but keeping with the scope of the Anniversary updates, we're not gonna go too overboard. For one, if we see something like the option to have DX8 portals in the standard DX9 mode, then that could absolutely be expanded to let people choose some of the early portal designs. I mean, you gotta throw in the Vine portals from the original game's trailer, and the swirl portals that are actually still used in Portal 2's infographic screens. Could be cute to see the actual original 2005 portals, but that may be too far to scope for this. However, if I'm to aim for at least one thing, come on, we gotta have the return of our boy, male portal player.mdl himself, Quentin. It seemed that during development, Portal was going to have the option to pick your gender. It's based on the Half-Life 2 deathmatch player model system, hence why Chell makes grunts when she's hurt in Portal 1, but not Portal 2. Quentin, as his model name of male portal player implies, was the male option, while Chell, or Celestine as she was originally called, was the female option. We learned the name Quentin thanks to something known as Portal Project Beta, which was given developmental materials for Portal 1 by Valve themselves. The tale of this project is going to be a video for another day, so let's focus back on male portal player here. Personally, I'm glad that Valve cut the gender system because it makes GLaDOS' conflict with Chell feel a lot more personal with the player. It would be ruined if it could just be some other guy instead. Wouldn't feel quite as special. But this many years after Portal's release, where people have modded everything possible to replace Chell, yeah, Why not throw Quinton back into the game? Bring the boy home. Make him an example add-on for the Portal 1 workshop, much like how Minerva was the example add-on for Half-Life 2. I think ApertureScience.com needs to be restored. It's a key component of Portal 1's identity to me, and stands out as an incredibly unique piece of the Half-Life universe. So let's go for a quick history lesson if you need a refresh. ApertureScience.com is an ARG website that aimed to give people a peek into what Aperture was like. It was dropped onto the world by Mark Laidlaw anonymously editing Portal 1's Wikipedia article back in 2006 to add a link to the website. Later, it was updated in 2007 to include the newly revealed Cave Johnson login details from Chamber 17 Ratman Den, and it led to even more history of the company being revealed. This website was not only a big part of the lead up to Portal's release, but it got reused a bunch during the Portal 2 ARG as well. The final state of the website was a video feed of a fireplace with Portal themed Christmas festivities. All the interactive elements were removed. And then, Adobe killed Flash, leading to the website now permanently displaying an error. This is something that I think deserves to be rectified, either by implementing the original ApertureScience.com into HTML5 or embedding a Flash emulator like Ruffle to ensure that this content is officially preserved. The Valve archive already has some great preservations of the original website, and it's what I gravitate to using in absence of any official method to view it. There is also a second problem. ApertureScience.com's lore wasn't ever really written to account for Portal 2 for obvious reasons, and it introduced a lot of new elements to the canon that aren't reflected because the original incarnation of the website didn't have that foresight. If there was any time to look back and perform rewrites, this is the time to do that. I don't think things should be replaced wholesale though. Personally, I enjoy my headcanon that Cave dying from Mercury is the cover-up story, while Cave Johnson dying from conversion gel poisoning is the truth. Aperture Science would have written up the timeline to paint themselves in the best light after all, even if the definition of what best light entails may be different to ours. There is the Portal 2 official guide, which does contain an updated version of the ApertureScience.com timeline, but I think it'll be wise for the writing touch-ups to be done independently of this, not taking it wholesale. So, why not bring this website back? Maybe even find a way to immortalize it in-game? That might be too complex. And with that, I don't have anything more I can discuss. I originally had a section here about the documentary. More specifically, talk about how Valve's crediting system is incredibly strange, and my concern that Valve may abuse that to ensure that Portal's actual developers don't get that voice in the documentary. Effectively, out of the hundreds of names you see in Portal 1's credits, I could only confirm about 10 active developers on the project from start to end, with about 19 total people at Valve who contributed to the creation of Portal, discounting the developer commentary names, as that contains people who didn't actually work on Portal 1. Here's the names of everyone I could verify all contributed to Portal, and what they did. I recommend pausing. I'm choosing to not talk about this more in depth in this video, as I think this is more reserved for a future video once I've gotten more verifiable first-hand information. So to make an overextended point clear, I hope Valve actually brings back the Nuclear Monkey software team to talk about Portal's development in a hypothetical documentary. So, if you have any personal desires of what you may want to see out of an anniversary update for Portal 1, why not leave a comment down below expressing it? I'm only one person, of course, so there are some things I may have neglected to mention because it may be too niche or otherwise not relevant to the video topic, but you may think it's worth talking about. So, remember to subscribe, follow me on Blue Sky, and support me on Patreon if you can. Stay safe out there. Peace.